Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce for our next session three speakers representing leading travel retailers from across the Americas region to give us their perspective on the crisis and indeed the road to recovery that we all hope for. I'm joined for this conversation by 360 Chief Operations Officer Alex Anson Esparza, representing the airline to airport travel retailer that's putting such a strong focus on omni-channel retailing today. Alex will be well known to many of you from both his current role and his time with Nuance, now Dufry, of course, over many years. We're also joined by Mota Internacional Senior Vice President Aurelio Barria, a senior longtime figure at the Panama-based travel retailer and distributor, and a man who has seen the ups and downs of the market in his near 30 years with the company. And we welcome Dufry General Manager Subcluster South America, Enrique Urioste, who'll be well known to many of you, of course. He oversees Dufry's business in Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, and has himself 2 decades of experience in this sector across a number of organizations and roles. So welcome all. Now, as with all of our sessions this week, we do welcome audience participation via the Q&A button on your screen. So please feel free to get involved by asking a question or making a comment. Now, to set the scene, I just want to start by getting an overview of where each of our participants' businesses stands today in this region. So perhaps starting with you, Aurelio, can you outline the situation you're facing today and really quantify the impact of the crisis on the business as we enter the second quarter of 2021?
Good morning and good afternoon for the rest of the crowd. The situation in Latin America, especially in Central America and some Andean countries, is very gradually and slow. It's very slow. And we have had 20% of the passengers that we had in the year 2019. That has a direct impact in our sales, the duty-free business in Central America, Colombia, and Ecuador. The situation has been very slow. We have had the lowest sales in the last 20 years. And I will say that we expect to be moving ahead and increasing in the near future, although it will be gradually. And due to the circumstances in some countries as Chile today, the government just announced it, closing the boundaries or for any foreign visitor to Chile. So for 30 days, no visitors will be allowed in Chile that are not nationals. This situation is complicating as the vaccination program is coming along. We expect to improve the confidence and the health of the travel people. And it definitely will have an impact in our sales as the airports will be having more passengers. The case of Panama is very particular, is the Hub of the Americas, and we expect that more passengers will be transiting through the airport of Tocumen Airport. That's the situation right now in the area. I will be glad to comment on other aspects later on.
Okay, thanks, Aurelio. Alex, what's the latest across the 360 business in this region?
So our presence in the Americas in bricks and mortar world is mainly in US airports. We do have some presence outside the US, Colombia and Canada, but most of our presence is in US airports. And we are seeing an evolution of domestic traffic as everybody has seen in the US. I think latest TSA numbers for last week talk to some record numbers since COVID. Some of the numbers I was seeing yesterday talked to about 1.5 million passengers going through TSA US airports last week. And I think from the numbers that I've seen, the Easter holiday is approximately somewhere around 50%, 50, 60% of where we were in 2019. So we've seen a significant evolution of domestic traffic, which is very encouraging. And it is a very recent evolution. I think at the beginning of the year, January, February, was much lower than where we ended up in 2020. And it's really encouraging how we're seeing the momentum now in March going into April. And as everybody will be aware, CDC latest guidelines that were issued last week. So the Center for Disease Control guidelines that were issued for US travel last week start to talk to vaccinated people with vaccine passports, reduce restrictions to be able to start traveling more freely without so much of the testing and certainly not the quarantine. So the US aspect is really positive. And of course, whilst we specialize in duty-free and selling to international travelers, where we can sell to domestic travelers, we are seeing some positive evolution there, which is very exciting. Having said that, as everybody will know, international travel restrictions remain today pretty much as they were last March. It is still the case that our biggest spending passenger groups in the Americas, or certainly in the US, being UK, Ireland, Northern Ireland, European Union, China, Brazil, those big spending PAX groups can still not come directly to the US. And therefore that passenger is largely not present, and we're servicing departing US travelers as opposed to returning Asians or Europeans. So for us, all of that combined means we have some positive aspects and certainly positive evolution in some airports. So for example, among our portfolio of airports, we operate in places like Dallas, which is an American Airlines hub. And Dallas is seeing good evolution of traffic and good evolution of sales, which is very encouraging. However, in airports where we service mainly returning traffic, let's say, for example, Orlando, which, as we all know, is servicing a lot of leisure traffic, and a lot of that leisure traffic is European, Chinese, Asian, Brazilian. Airports like Orlando still not seeing that international traffic evolution. So a mixed bag. And clearly, we're all, certainly from an outlook point of view, very much looking forward to seeing the CDC set out some guidelines for international travel in the way that they've done so for domestic. We're very much looking forward to the CDC saying vaccinated travelers with vaccine passports will be given different conditions under which they can travel, and hopefully start to see some of the re-emergence of international travel in the US. As far as airlines are concerned, Dermot, I think we've seen pretty much a very, well, not even an evolution of traffic. We service Air Canada and Avianca, amongst other airlines in this region. And Air Canada, whilst they have traffic, they have flights, they haven't resumed in-flight sales still. And therefore, as you said in your introduction, most of our efforts when it comes to in-flight has been focused on omni retail, e-commerce retail, where we have seen a good evolution of sales across all regions in the world.
Okay, good. And Enrique, what's the story from your point of view? Clearly a vast region that you serve, obviously within the duty-free network, and I guess a different picture depending on the regulations in each country, but just a broad picture of where you are today.
Yes, Dermot, my overall picture is more or less the same as everybody's. I mean, if we had to average the traffic, we are trending in the best of the countries, 20% of the traffic we used to have. But again, I think that despite the struggles that we went through, despite the fact that we spent almost last year with zero traffic at all. We were on the exercise of closing down operations. We were on the salvation mode, to put it in a way, restructuring companies and restructuring or reimagining how the future was going to be. We saw a small spring coming during the opening of December, January, and February, where we saw this 20% in some countries coming back with certain characteristics. Number one, they were all nationals, almost all nationals going in and out. So it was basically Argentinians going to the US, Argentinians going to Mexico, or Chileans going to the US, or Chileans going to Mexico. But there was not the traffic we used to have where we had this combined of different passenger mix blending through the countries. And what we saw is, I would say, a huge appetite to regain the freedom we lost as citizens. I think that this crisis came in the moment where the world was open as never, the connectivity was open as never, was wide as never, and suddenly, out of the blue, COVID came. And our basic rights of freedom to move were just ripped away from us. So what we see, and this is a pattern that I see in all the countries, and when I talk to my sales staff, is it's a hunger to come and travel. It's a hunger to come and buy. Some with caution, some afraid, yes, and some others that got already familiarized with COVID and are not in that state of panic. But regardless of the kind of passenger we are going to have back, I think that the most important reason to be optimistic and look to the future in an optimistic way is people want to travel, they have a desire to travel, they have a desire to buy, and the vaccine, that is the tool that is going to give us the road back to freedom, is there. So tough moments, ups and downs, and I said the spring because you had the opening of countries, you have people traveling, and now, as Aurelio said, Chile is in full lockdown. Argentina now is only authorizing 4 international flights per day from the 20 we used to have. Very strict measures of quarantine. And again, touching the basic rights of people. You are sent into a quarantine hotel. You don't even quarantine in your house. You have to go to a hotel designated by the government. The same in Chile. So all of these things go against the very basic human rights, and for a bigger cost, there is the sanitary precaution and taking care of the people and taking care of the hospital installations. But I think that people are, seeing anxiously the way to come back.
Yeah, I'm just, I suppose, just to follow on from that with you, and Enrique, what with the few passengers that you do have, whether it's 20% or whatever the number is, what measures can you take indeed to interest them further in the shopping offer? You mentioned a hungry but cautious traveler in some parts. What tools are you using, and what role in particular does digital and will it play in terms of your engagement overall with these travelers?
Well, look, I think it's key. Digital is key. It's key, and it's a key challenge in our industry, because in most of the countries we are faced with a legal corset. I cannot sell online in most of the countries. So we know that the digital is a key tool to bounce back sales, and we need to fight within our restrictions. So things like contacting the passenger even before they are at the airport, getting to know them better, and most importantly, reinventing the relationships with the aeronautical community. I have seen firsthand, like I never thought I would see, with the vast majority of my airports, a new generation of relationship is starting. And not only from the financial point of view that it happened, but also from the way we work, how we do join our efforts to have a better passenger with a better experience, selling more, not only in my store, but also at the food and beverage, also at all the other services that we saw, and I can say, for example, in Argentina, we're really working very, very close with the airport to reinvent the travel industry, to reinvent the experience we can provide to this passenger, both in security to make them feel safe while they travel, but also offering them new experiences. So yes, I think that digital is key. I think that the new relationship and the adaptation of all the parts of this industry, airlines, airports, F&B, retailers in general, parking, etc., everything has the unique opportunity to work together in a much more collaborative environment. I think that, you know, I've been a follower of the Trinity that Martin launched many years ago. I think it was in 2007. And I think that this is the first time, and I always want to see that the glass is full half and not half empty. And I think that this is the opportunity or the excuse or the conditions that our industry didn't have that in 2007, but has now to reinvent this new collaborative way in the Trinity to all work together.
Yeah, 2003. So even longer. We're all much older than we thought we were, Enrique. So yes, that goes further back. And indeed, the note about that collaboration very much chimes with what Martin Ornekian mentioned as well from his base too, from the point of view of Cooperación America. So we'll come back to the partnership element of the conversation in a few moments. Aurelio, just briefly, what measure are you taking, even with fewer passengers available, to engage and interest those travelers in the offer today? And again, just a note about digitalization in your own business.
We have to be creative, and we have to promote sales before the passenger arrives at the airport. We're promoting with very good results, the reserve and pickup at the airport, which is something that is attractive to many passengers. And we also have the opportunity to pre-sale and pick up at return. Most of the passengers that we have are nationals, and they are making short trips. And when they buy with time when they leave, but they want to pick up soon when they return. So that opportunity is allowing the entrance or arrival duty free to be more aggressive, to be more important than the departure passengers at the moment. I would say that e-commerce is something that is hitting all the retailers. Amazon is selling direct, and Alibaba, Dufry is associated with Alibaba, and they know more about that. But the opportunity is there. The passengers have the time, the passengers have the money, and they will have the opportunity to feel safe and clean when they enter the stores, as we communicate them that it's safe to come in. I would say that probably they will avoid contacts with the sales advisors, but we have to have some of them at the stores for those who like to questions or have more information about the products. But the times have changed. I think we have to be creative. I think we have to look for the ways to attract the impulse buyer and have more promotions and have a price differential with the local market that will be interesting to the passengers, more than 20% at least. And that's the way we have to work with the companies that produce the liquors and the cosmetics and the perfumes, the suppliers. We have to have a new relationship with them and understand that we need new products that are not in the local markets to have it first at the airports. That will be a very good attractive to the passengers. In addition to that, we need to have a close relationship with the airports. The retailers have been for the past a very important provider of income to the airports. And things have changed. We have to negotiate new terms and conditions because we cannot pay the same terms and the rents that we pay in the past. All the rules have changed, and they must understand that. And we are in the process of letting them know that a good partner is important. We have to avoid the landlord relationship and have a partnership relationship with the airports. That's the only way we can be in the business for the future and give the service to the passengers. But we have to be creative and be working on that.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, just briefly from your point of view, omnichannel clearly a big focus for 360. right now. What are the next steps, I suppose, in driving that engagement with the consumer from your point of view?
So if we focus on the airline world of this conversation and travel retail as far as airlines concerned, many of the challenges that Enrique and Aurelio talk about, namely not knowing the customer or having to, make big efforts to get to know that customer, are already advantages in working with airlines. Because fundamentally, the airlines know full well who's traveling with them. They've made reservations. In many cases, in excess of 60% of bookings are made directly rather than through booking platforms. And they know when this traveler is traveling, and in many cases, whether it's a family or if it's a business trip and so on and so forth. So in some respects, whilst in-flight or let's say airline-based travel retail has for many years been a declining model, the customer understanding, which is at the heart of e-commerce, has been a massive enabler to have this phoenix that rises out the ashes, so to speak, and develop and deliver effective e-commerce solutions. The best example for us is not in the region. The best example, as you all know, is in Singapore Airlines, where fundamentally the COVID-19 crisis has been a reason to accelerate e-commerce investments, omni investments, and has delivered successful growth in e-commerce over the last 12 months. So, it's actually a reassurance that, or it's a very reassuring fact that the strategy is correct, and it's actually been accelerated as a result of COVID. And that's very much the approach we've taken to other airline partners, taking the last 12 months as the opportunity to invest for the future and invest in omni-driven solutions, so that we can have some revenues in the short term, but also really bring forward what we would have expected in 3 to 5 years' time in a more 1 to 2 year horizon. So in the in-flight world, it's critical. We're investing to accelerate our strategy, and we feel very strongly about that. And we already have the facts at hand to prove to us that is the right strategy based on the results that we're seeing with one of our partners, Singapore Airlines, albeit not in this region. In the airport world, it's tougher, as we know, for the very same reason that we don't know the customer when, by the time we get to know the customer, in many cases, it's too late. They're already at the airport. And therefore, we're having to find different ways to drive e-commerce. 360 has done that by partnering with GetGrab, who are providing food and beverage, and we were the first retail partner in some of the airports in which we operate. So customers can pre-order, as Aurelio has mentioned, but we've also provided not only a service in store, but a delivery to gate service in airports such as Dallas and Philadelphia. So it is a different challenge, but it's still one we all need to work on to overcome. Ultimately, consumer trends outside of the airport, be it brand, be it platform, be it just normal consumer retail trends, are moving at pace. We are no longer a bubble that can be permeated or we can be protected from these non-travel retail trends. And therefore, I think we all recognize we need to invest to find these solutions, because the consumer is expecting them from travel retail in the same way as they are already seeing them in domestic. A trend that in domestic we've seen has accelerated. Many e-commerce specialists talk about, having jumped 3 to 5 years as a result of COVID in the trends and that have taken place. So we should expect, therefore, we need to accelerate our efforts in the bricks and mortar world too, as we have done in the in-flight world.
Yeah, Enrique, Alex, says retail moving at such pace. Are you planning already for a very different type of consumer going forward? I mean, what does the research tell you about what the appetite is among the consumers you are seeing or expect to see around the offer environment and ability and willingness to spend?
Well, I think that nobody knows who the new customer is going to be. Nobody knows exactly when things are going to be open. What we for sure know is that we need to be ready to deliver a much more a better experience to all those passengers. We need to use as much artificial intelligence as we can. We need to know and understand the passenger. We need to joint efforts with each and every airport to make sure that as from the moment that the passenger buys the ticket, travels to the airport, shops, dines, and then boards, is the best experience in the world. We know that at least at the beginning, the bounce back is going to be slow. And we know that probably it's going to take quite some time to all that part of the passengers who are concerned. I wouldn't use the word afraid, I would use the word concern, and to relax themselves and buy. So I think it's this new world or this new reality has forced all of us to reinvent ourselves, to become better companies, to become more resilient, and to try to engage in a better way. And this is why I want to really put the emphasis again on the collaboration and the working together. I think it's a unique opportunity that if we don't grab it and we don't work it and we don't build it, we will have missed a huge opportunity. Look, crisis, sanitary crisis as much as economic crisis, they come, we learn how to deal with them, and they move on. And I don't know when, but we will be moving on to the old, new, or reinvented normality. But the time is now. Crises are a unique opportunity to transform the future. But we need to know that we have the opportunity, and we need to know where we need to want, or where we want to go in order to work together with it. And again, this industry has worked in silos. And as Aurelio said, we have to go back many times to the basics. Work with retailers to have unique travel retail products. Work with the airports to have unique experiences. Work with the airlines. Work with the parking. Work with everything that is here to deliver the best possible experience. In our world, we have two kinds of passengers: the business traveler and the leisure traveler. And I want to focus on the leisure because I think that is the one that we have more secure. I think that probably the business traveler is the one who, I don't know when it's going to come back, but the leisure traveler, that one for sure is going to come back. That one is the one who has been suppressed or restrained from traveling, and they're going to come back. And we need to show them that they are in a new reality where we can offer the best possible experience for them. And I might sound repetitive, but I think that if we grab that, if we do it with intelligence, with data grabbing, and in collaboration, all the parts have a lot to win.
Yeah, for sure. Aurelio, just to turn to you, and you mentioned that subject about relationships. Have you taken a different and wider view of the future, and what does that look like, including that area of how you as a retailer operates in partnership with the airport and the brand owner?
Before, we were very concerned about security, terrorism, and other measures that force the more controls at the airports. Now we have the health crisis, and now people are concerned about a new type of risk. What the passenger or what the consumer will be like in the future. I agree with Enrique that we're going to have more leisure passengers traveling, people who will probably know what they want to buy. Their impulse buying will depend on price opportunities that they can find, or the new products that they could find in their airport, rather than in the local markets. I would say that passengers are keeping their buy per pax, or the level of purchase per pax that they had before in the year 2019. We are lacking the numbers of passengers, but people are buying. What are they buying? They're buying the traditional. 65% of their sales is liquor, perfume, and cosmetics. The rest, accessories and electronics, probably will be increasing, but slowly than before. I will say that we have to be concerned that the passenger will be probably affected by the economic crisis in their countries. That will say Latin America has been hit in their economies. So the leisure will be more within the region rather than going to Europe, we expect. And they will probably be traveling in the region as their domestic flights are also increasing. They will be traveling in the region to know the other countries rather than going to farther distances as Europe of Asia. Uh, it will not be easy. We have to compete. We have to face a new reality. Maybe we have to reduce the size of the stores. Maybe we have to reduce the SKUs that we have to offer in the different lines of products. Because before we used to have larger stores for larger crowds of passengers, but now we have any business who loses 75, 80% of the clients is hurt. And we have to be focusing in how to be financially, feasibly operating. And the only way is to look into our cost, look into our cost per meter, per square meter, and with the people that work with us. We have to probably reduce the level of sales advisors that we had before. People who like to buy what they know they want to buy. People who really know what their whiskey or the wine they want to purchase, they'll go directly and buy it instead of be searching for new products probably. But it's going to be a challenge. We have to study day by day what the role of them, what the impulse of their buy will be, and we have to be adjusting. Nothing is predictable at this moment. Not even the amount of passengers that we'll have at the end of the year. And we're talking about year 2024 as the year when we return to the reality of the 2019. So it's going to be 3 years that we have to learn how to work with our clients. And we have to be very careful to be adjusting our cost to be in business. Otherwise, other countries, small boutiques, will no longer be operating at the airports.
Yeah, it's Alex, it's interesting, to talk about, as many retailers are, on having to rationalizing the range, using fewer resources overall in terms of staff, losing expertise, of course, in terms of the people around, and making it more challenging to build up. And yet at the same time, we do talk a lot about where innovation is going to come from. And yet, so there's almost a contradiction there in terms of really pulling back on the range for the next year, possibly longer, but also wanting to have the exclusives, the differentiation, and the innovation in the business. How do you square that circle, I suppose, as we rebuild? Is going to be a difficult challenge, I think.
Yeah, and I echo what Aurelio and Enrique have said. We have to be good operators. We have to go back to being good retailers and deliver the basics well. I think if we reflect on the journey that we've been on, travel retail operators the world over a year ago found themselves with stores closing, in a period of closure, and we were all sitting on years worth of stock. You got big stores, as Aurelio says, full of brands and full of SKUs that we're expecting to take the sort of turnover that we all budgeted in 2019. And in 2020, we took a very small proportion of that. So we've all been working to manage cash flow and effectively, managing our inventory, managing our ranges, clearing some of those. Some of our aggressive promotions across the industry have been in part driven because we've all needed to reduce inventory, convert stock to cash. Whilst, yes, of course, it's important that we had attractive offers for customers to come into our stores. The few customers that were there, we wanted them to buy. And of course, 12 months on, we're in a position where the customers that are in our stores they have the same expectation, let's be honest, that they had 2 years ago. They still want the best sellers, they still want good value, and they still want innovation. That's the reality. They didn't not want them just because we're in a crisis and because we have to manage our working capital ranges and so on. They still want them, and therefore if we do not offer those to these passengers, then the little turnover that is available in some airports will be missed. So we have to do that. But knowing at the same time, we all are still carrying inventory that is not as necessary as it was in 2019, as Aurelio says. So we're having to be good operators on the basics of our offer. How do we make sure that we continue to invest our capital in driving sales, bestsellers, innovation, and working with our supplier partners? Because at the end of the day, you know, that's the model that we have. We co-invest, they bring novelties to market. We have to continue doing that, whilst at the same time, we continue to sell through the overhang of stock that is not as required in the business as it was in 2019. Now, I guess there'll be a moment in time where we start to see the shift once more from, you know, and we see an acceleration of sales, and it might, by the sounds of it, it might take a little bit longer in South America than it's taken in North America, given some of the domestic versus international traffic evolutions. But I think the critical point in this conversation is for me exactly that. How we are readying ourselves for when we see an acceleration of travel, to make sure our businesses are in the best possible shape to take advantage of that. Because we've got a robust offer, and to get to that point, we will have all had to do a really good job of managing our inventories, our cash, our partnerships. And secondly, I think even more critically is, again, the same points that Enrique and Aurelio have made, partnerships. And of course, partnerships with brands, but critically partnerships with airports. I think the biggest risk that we have in the next 3 years, other than the inherent COVID risks, is that some airport commercial departments will see the positive evolution of domestic traffic as an enabler to go back to the rents that were being charged to duty-free retailers in the international environment, which we all know cannot happen. You know, the fact is there's been a lot of MAG reliefs and a lot of agreed rent reliefs throughout their industry in 2020 and in 2021. And I think critically in this partnership, we need to be working with our airport partners to make sure those remain in place until the traffic does come back to similar levels to 2019, which, you know, Aurelio talks to 2024. Certainly much of the industry data talks to 2023, 2024. So critically, we have to do that, because if some airports think that they can revert back to historical rents before this traffic and therefore these revenues are in place, it could spell a crisis for many travel retail operators.
Yeah, Enrique, just to pick up on that, you did mention how new partnerships are taking shape. Do you think, have the dynamics changed between the various Trinity parties, and do you think they will as a fallout from this crisis in terms of the power balance between those players?
Look, I fully agree with Alex, and when I say, you know, whenever you do a partnership, it's tough. People have to concede. People nobody wants to lose what they had, and this is part of the beauty of building a new relationship under the crisis. We heard this morning, Martin Onikian saying something that for me is key. Historically, airports had to do massive investments to increase capacity. That is not going to be the case anymore. No airport is going to be needing to increase capacity. As Aurelio was saying, probably our stocks and our offer is oversized as well. So we together will have to reinvent this. And together we will have to go back to a model where we share the success of the business coming back together. Most of the airport have gone either, as Alex was saying, on a temporary base, and some others, there are discussions going on going to a more permanent basis. The way we contract with them, especially on the MAG side of the business. The MAG is the risk killing, where if something goes wrong, it's all in our fault, the one who commits to pay a fixed MAG. And I think that the new world is going to go to a risk sharing. If the airport delivers the number of passengers, we commit to extract an X amount of money for passengers delivered. So we are going to go walking I think that with some airports more easy, with some others more difficult, into a MAC per pax basis, where we all assume our challenges. As I said before, the airport puts the passenger on the airport, and we commit to sell an X amount of dollars per pax. So if the conditions are there, we all have our risk, but we can manage those risks. And I don't know if I'm too optimistic by what I just said or not. I hope that the optimism that I always have comes together with some reality. But I think that we will see this kind of change, because it's not sustainable that only the retailers, and I'm not saying just the travel retailers, I'm saying here food and beverage, I'm saying here all the components of the airport community have the risk or are the only ones sharing the risk. I think that this model is a fair model. It's a model that during the crisis have been in place in the vast majority of airports, and it's the way that I think that the future will take us.
Yeah. Aurelio, it's an interesting idea. And you also mentioned about the new types of partnerships that will develop, MAG per pax or another formula, perhaps. Do you sense an appetite, I suppose, among your airport partners for that type of change, or rather, will they be forced into it?
Definitely, with all the paying passengers. We participated in public bids, and we were given an estimation of passengers for the time of the concession, 10 years, with an annual growth of 6 or 7%. But now we know that that doesn't exist. Those passengers are no longer there. So our commitment that we had in the beginning had changed completely. So the airports, our partners, should understand that airlines are not providing the passengers that they gave us, and they guarantee us in a way to provide, to have the business and to have the max that we offer. So definitely we have to change the rules of engagement. Definitely, we can no longer work with the same conditions that we had before. And we have airports that have expanded their terminals because they believed in their growth of about 8 or 10% a year. But now it's going to take many years to even come back to their projections. And sometimes we will not even see that during our concession time. So yes, I agree that we have to do a relationship of paying percentage accordingly to the levels of passengers that we have, or a variable percentage of sales, depending on the passengers that we have at the airports. But we can no longer pay minimum annual or monthly guarantee as we agreed to pay when we started the relationship. But not only with the airports, we have to work with the airlines to maybe to provide advanced information, as Alex mentioned, to see who is traveling, probably enter their site and probably offer them some of the products that we have at the airports where they depart. And that would be a very good opportunity to give a new value to those passengers that are using the airline, probably give them a discount or whatever. But we also have to work with the suppliers. Suppliers must understand that e-commerce is killing the retailers, not only at the airports, but in the local markets too. And they have to find out a price structure that will be convenient, not only to the differential tax, the duty in the countries, but as well as the competition that the e-commerce has, because we carry space, we pay rent, we pay people, we pay advisors, we announce the products that e-commerce is not doing it. So we have to work with suppliers at these meetings and let them know that we need to structure a new relationship for the business of retail business at the airport. That's the way we're going to be successful in the future. Yes, we have a good future ahead if we can reorganize ourselves. and crises are opportunities. Then we have to find out how to concentrate, how to give the service, reduce ourselves, and give a good value to our passengers, clients.
For sure. Alex, just on that note, I mean, what message out there for brands? A lot of obviously the exhibitors are principally brands at this event, and a lot of those listening in as well. Message about the future, you know, differentiation and innovation, very important. But of course, you need that partner in the brand owners to play their part and to partner with you in an equitable way.
Absolutely. And look, I have a threefold message to our vendor partners. And that talks to the time horizon, really. I think before I jump into that, I think a concerning development for some of the big multinational brands for me is that if we focus on international travel and if we focus on servicing big passenger groups, let's say Chinese passengers, we've certainly seen a lot of the big P&C vendors over recent statements results, at the last calendar year, last quarterly results, talk to having had a successful business in Asia in spite of the demise of travel retail. So we've seen a lot of the big P&C vendors talk to how China and various Asian markets have developed positively over the last 6-9 months, and a business that's been driven through domestic e-commerce platforms more than travel retail. In other words, a Chinese passenger that was going through airports around the world, as he's not been traveling, he's still been shopping, he's still been consuming, and those sales have been fulfilled by these brands through other platforms in those markets, directly through e-commerce platforms in China or whatever that, or other retailers in the Chinese market. So to some extent, for some of the big brands, they've mitigated our downside with an evolution or acceleration of the evolution, selling to these customers directly in other environments. And first and foremost, I think my biggest ask for vendor partners is that, as we've heard Enrique and Aurelio say, leisure travel will resume. It will resume interregional or within the region first, and then long haul second, as we all anticipate. And that this channel, travel retail, has been amazingly successful channel for many decades and will continue to be so, and being able to service this long haul passengers, these big spending passengers, in an environment that they don't typically have in the domestic markets, or at least with the time and the service that we give them. And therefore, my biggest task is that they need to continue investing in our channel and in our region for the long term, because it might be a short-term blip in the evolution of the last 50 years of travel retail and the next however number of decades of travel retail, but it's not, this blip is not forever. So we need them to be committed to our region and our channel to make sure that we're ready for the resumption of that international, especially long haul customer who will come back, whether it's 6, 9, 12 months, they will be there. And that means that in the short term, you know, our partnership talks to ensuring that we are sharing the pain, so to speak, on how we're working through inventories and investing in these aggressive promotions that we all know we need, both to clear inventories, but also to attract the customers that are in our airports. Investments that we are all making and have to continue to make for some time still to come. And then, of course, my last ask is, how are we bridging this evolution from where we are today and those tough, you know, decisions that we're all making regarding investments and inventories and so on, versus the long-term position that we all expect to see in the future, and the progressive investments that will be required in 6 months, in 9 months, in 12 months, to make sure that we're, again, not leaving money on the table as we see an acceleration of travel. I'll give you an example. You know, for example, you go into downtown stores now in the US. I was in Sephora last week, and whilst there's still social distancing, there's still reduced presence in the store, Sephora has got all testers out, has got exceptional promotions for the day, 50% discounts on the day. They are trying to get to business as normal. And here we are in travel retail, in many cases, still not sure whether we should be putting testers out, not sure whether, how aggressive we can go with some of our activity in this COVID world. So we need to be working closer together to navigate the short term, the medium term, going back to more of a normal trading environment, but fundamentally making sure that they are supporting our channel and our region for the long term, because our big spending international passengers will be back, and we need to make sure we're even better when they do come back to have even higher revenues in the future.
Thanks, Alex. Enrique, a message for the brand owning community out there or on the call, and even an ask of them from your point of view.
Well, I'm going to use what Alex and Aurelio said, and try to go to our broader message. Historically, we were all good partners. I mean, this is a business that doesn't exist without brands, and this is a business that doesn't exist with retailers. And I think that together with brands that obviously were very much affected by this crisis, there was no part of this puzzle that was not affected by this crisis. But I think the reinvention that I've been talking through all this session, is the brands are a key element of that. And I think that sometimes it's just going back to the basics. Sometimes it's going back to, probably you remember 20 years ago, those travel exclusives that were only found in our channel, and now you can find them anywhere. Go back to that. Go back to that magic of traveling. Go back to that, I can only get it if I go through the airport. That sense of bringing back to your loved ones or to your office a special present that is only available in the channel. I think that is part of the things, of the magic we need to recover. And also, we as airports, we need to recover the magic of the sense of local. We need to recover the sense of, either I buy it here, I won't buy it because I'm going to be getting this product in Argentina. I'm only going to be getting this product in Panama. I'm only going to be the sense of local, not only local products, but not only local products made in the country, but also products that are available only on those regions. And I don't know if it's easy. I don't know if it's a thing that is doable or not. But I think we need to sit down and reinvent the wheel. We need to bring back the magic that our business does. And I love to use the word magic, because I think that, yes, pricing is important. Yes, price comparison is always going to be there. But temptation, and temptation for me is limiting. Magic is the sense. When you come back and our sales staffs, our decoration, our products, the showcases that we do, the services we provide are taking you already on the trip before you started flying. And as Alex said, I'm based here in Miami. I go to the retails like Sephora, everybody is back to normal. And we are still banned of using some testers in some places. And you go to Sephora or you go to any other beauty store, everything is back to normal. Everybody's trying sunglasses. You go to Sunglass Hut, everybody's trying sunglasses. Yes, you take the precaution. And as I said, you have two basic types of customers. The ones who learn to live with the virus, and they respect the virus, but they want to go to normality, and the ones who are in a state of panic. We need to take care of the ones who are in a state of panic, but we need to provide and deliver the sense of normality. We have a virus, we understand the virus, we're in the process of having the vaccination campaign roll out. We can work as normal as we were before, taking the precautions and not overreacting as we did when the virus started in last year.
Great message. The magic of duty free. I hope we can carry that message through the week. I'm going to jump very quickly to a couple of the comments and questions from the audience. From Oscar Ospina. Thanks, Oscar, for the note. He says many operators are pushing for duty paid options for airports with a mix of domestic travelers, and a good example is Cancun. Do you consider that this should be the norm in airport travel now, especially as it conflicts with existing contracts with brands that are supposed to target duty-free prices? Perhaps, as Cancun is mentioned, Enrique, I should maybe give that one to you.
Well, yes, no problem. Although Cancun is not my territory,
Yeah.
I think in the broader picture is, if the conditions are there, why not? Why not? I think that there are many, because of the legal regime and the uniqueness of our systems, there are many mental barriers that are even worse than the legal barriers. So why not? Why not have duty free and duty paid if the traffic and the legislation allows it? Alex, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your airports in the US, I remember when I was working there,
yeah.
Except for liquor and tobacco, in most of the cities, you can buy duty free or duty paid, paying or without paying the tax. And that is, I'm a profound defendant and profound lover of freedom. I think that freedom is the most important value that we as human beings have. And I transport freedom to everything I do. So I have the freedom to buy duty free in a beautiful store that Alex has in X airport in the US. And I decide if I'm traveling domestic, I pay the sales tax. If I'm traveling international, I have the exemption. And that is the way our industry should go.
Absolutely, I completely agree with Enrique, Dermot. I mean, and we don't have to look very far, not from US airports where you can sell some categories and buy some categories, or even the European Union. I mean, let's face it, the European Union has had a model for 20 years, whereby you can buy duty free and we sell duty free and duty paid depending on the passengers. Some solutions are one SKU, two prices, some are two SKUs, but at least there's an offer for what is going to be the faster emerging domestic traffic, and not being able to service that traffic, back to Enrique's point, is not providing the freedom, not providing a solution, and for us as an industry, leaving money on the table.
Yeah, just a related question came in this second as you were mentioning that, from Carlos Calvo. How are retailers doing innovation in wines and spirits when tastings are not allowed? And I guess that speaks to the ability to engage and interact with the consumer. And Alex, just while you have the floor, I suppose that just isn't happening really. Then,
we will be launching tastings in a COVID friendly manner from May. We will be putting in sneeze guards. We will put in all the protections that are necessary to do single use tastings from May. Back to delivering the right things for the customer and getting down to basics, we'll be doing that in our stores from May. We're coming up with that plan.
Okay, good sign.
Package confectionery, for example, and so on, so that we're protecting the customer in the process.
Right. Aurelio, just to jump back to you, a quick question actually from one of our team about reflecting the changing lower passenger numbers in the agreements that you have with your airport partners. Any progress with the airports that you work with where Mota has a retail presence in terms of those agreements as yet?
Yes, there has been progress. Not easy. We have to have a lot of elements and criteria to make them understand that they are not guaranteed the passengers they promise to have, and we no longer can pay the minimum rental guarantee. There has been a reduction of the IMF, or the minimum rental guarantee, as a proportion of the passengers percentage that is being reached every month. So the solution is complicated, but there are a few possibilities that we can agree with the airport to set the minimum guarantee to a percentage of the passengers that were registered during the month before. So that will be a formula probably. The other formula is to pay a low percentage of the sales, depending on the level of the passengers. If the passengers in comparison with 2019 were 25% or 30%, we expect to pay between 20 or 25% of the sales instead of a 30 or more percentage. So we'll be making a segmentation of the percentage paid to the airport depending on the percentage of passengers arriving at that airport in the month before. Well, we have to work on them because they also say that they have their expenses, that they need their income, but we tell them that it's better to negotiate a good deal than to have a closing store, because once you have the store closed, we all lose. So, that's a situation that we have to work and convince them.
Something needs to happen. A quick fire question for you, Alex. It's airline related, so I'll push it your direction. Will we, from our good friend Heidi Van Roon from Spark Group, will we see publicly available and free Wi-Fi on airlines in the near future? I think that also relates to the wider question of airline engagement in the industry and ability to tackle the passenger through the journey that they take overall. So it's I guess a wider question.
Wi-Fi continues to accelerate its rollout in flight, as we've seen. It's not typically a free model. Some services are free, so you can stream certain activity on free. For example, we've recently launched Singapore Airlines will allow customers to shop online using Wi-Fi to therefore have much wider access of range, transact live on whilst in flight, and be able to then have goods ready for collection on arrival. So leveraging Wi-Fi for free to give customers a much broader shopping experience in order to be able to shop the many thousands of SKUs that we have live there already, as opposed to if you were to keep all of that data on an in-flight portal, so to speak, just for that part, it becomes quite cumbersome how you continue to update range and pricing and so on. So it's happening, but from a commercial point of view, ultimately someone needs to pay for the service. It doesn't come for free. There's hardware and software, and unless there's a commercial model to pay for it, and that commercial model can come through the shape of revenues from retail purchases or advertising, then it will never be free. But I have a high expectation we will find solutions working with airlines to find that commercial model, either, for us to say, through retail or through advertising or other means to make Wi-Fi more accessible, and maybe at some point free for more services than just retail.
Right. Final one for you, Enrique. Question from Marcus Zobel. When can we expect concrete digital platform offers from the travel retail operators, and what will they look like? Now, I suspect the question is more around what the next steps are for the digital platform. What's the next evolution going to look like?
Well, I think it's such a broad question that it's also difficult to answer, because what is the full scope of the full platform? Again, as I said, as far as I know, in other countries, our duty-free system has huge restrictions, legal restrictions. So I wish I could set up my online sales and sell to everybody from Argentina. That is not the case, and it's not happening. So I think that the maximization of the digital platforms that we are working and really making huge progress, and that is for our company, for Dufry, digital is a key investing sector. We believe that the future is there. And so within the legal framework of each and every concession, we are trying to go as digital as we can, and in collaboration with the airports and in collaboration with all the other actors that are in our environment. I think that artificial intelligence is a key element to maximize sales. I think that connecting and engaging with the customer when they buy the ticket, when they travel to the airport, welcoming them when they are at the airport are key elements. Getting to know, but really know, because we've been talking many times saying, yes, we know our customer, we know our customer. And I asked the question myself, how well do we know our customers? Because it's difficult to say I really know my customer. So I think that personally, and this is my very personal opinion, I think that in knowing our customer, we have a huge way to work and to improve. Penetration rates. We need to ask ourselves how we can increase penetration through digital. We historically, even with walk-through stores, we have very low penetration rates. Well, is digital a tool that, in combination with other services that we can combine, elaborate with the airports, with the VIP lounges, with the airlines, can we improve that penetration? So I think that the digital platform goes more in that kind of range than in a typical digital platform that one can imagine, can I transaction online?
Yeah, very good. Well, look, that's I think a theme we'll return to throughout this week. We've packed a lot into the last hour, and I can see people who joined us at the start haven't left, so that must mean that we've had a pretty good conversation overall, and I think one that people will pull a lot from. I'd like to thank each of our speakers today, Alex, Aurelio, and Enrique, for their time and really thoughtful and candid contributions. Importantly, we're going to reconvene for the next session at 1200 Eastern, so that's just under 30 minutes away, and look forward to seeing many of you there again. Meantime, please enjoy your time back in the exhibition hub with our exhibitors. Now we're going to a virtual coffee break now, courtesy of our friends at Somrus and the wonderful Sedekar sisters. So stay tuned for their latest coffee cocktail recipes and much more besides. Thank you again, gentlemen, and can you please roll the Somrus coffee break video. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bonjour, hi, I'm Seema Sedekar. And bonjour, hello, I am Nisha Sedekar, and we are the Sedekar sisters.
And welcome back to our Somrus coffee break here at the Summit of the Americas.
And we can't wait to take you all around the world to try all the new amazing international Somrus coffee recipes.
Where are we going first, Nisha?
Our first stop is Canada. We're gonna try some Tim Hortons coffee and enjoy some tasty Timbit treats. But first, we want to say a couple of hellos.
Special shout out to Heidi and Jackie from Canada, our hometown.
And we want to give a special shout out to Gustavo. Hi, Gustavo, representing Dufry, Brazil.
To begin making your Canadian double-double Somrus coffee cocktail, pour 8 ounces of hot Tim Hortons coffee into your mug. Add 2 spoons of sugar and add 2 shots of Somrus to your coffee. Stir to finish and enjoy. It's gonna taste like home and maybe even take us home. Whoa, that was amazing. I can't believe we took our first Zoom call in Canada.
That's what Somrus does. It adds magic to your coffee.